The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Hi, and welcome to Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. My guest today is Ross Kentner, who is mayor of the municipality of Meaford. And it's good to have Ross back. It's always a pleasure to hear what's going on in, how shall I say it? Well, the eastern side of Owen Sound. That's only because I'm sitting in Owen Sound. If I were in town of Blue Mountains, I say to the west of us, but I'm not there. I'm here.
And let me tell you, east meets west in the municipality of Meaford, but it is just slightly smaller than the city of Toronto. Geographically, we are a big municipality.
That's
things going on.
Well, we forget those things, and I'm quite sure you are awfully glad you don't have the problems of the city of Toronto either.
That's for sure. Sometimes I think our problems are pretty severe because we do have a great many miles of roads, and I think at last count something like 85 bridges or structures that are, always there's this infrastructure gap that we're dealing with, and bridges, they come in at, is it 1 million or 2 million or more? It's terrible.
Let's face it, it's seven figures, no matter what you're talking about.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah. And I know I've had this conversation about the bridges with your predecessors because it's a huge issue for Meaford. But you've begun to put money away for infrastructure, have you not, in the budget?
Well, what we're doing is we're spending it hand over fist. We've been adding for some years now 1% to the tax levy for bridges, 1% for roads, and in the last few years, 0.5% for facilities. And this is to try and close that infrastructure gap that all municipalities have. And the good news is I'm very fortunate to have, become mayor at a time when this has been going on for I want to say the last 3 or 4 councils, so 10 to 12 years. And that means that we have, people are used to the idea that we have to invest in our infrastructure, and we've already made a good start. And every year we seem to be able to, add that along with inflation and still come out with a fairly modest tax increase. So we're pretty lucky.
Well, speaking of tax increases, that leads right into the whole question of the 2023 budget, which I believe you have now adopted.
We have. And it represents, on a blended basis, that is when you take into account the county levy and the school board levy, a 3.16% increase, which is really roughly half of inflation. And we're not taking into account that there are items that are inflated by 9, 10, and 11%, you know what I mean, in the last year. So I think this is it finally ended up being, in my mind, a fiscally responsible budget when it was, first unveiled at about a 7% increase or more. I thought that really isn't fiscally responsible at a time when people are really hard pressed. Just to pay the rent and the groceries and the taxes.
Yeah, well, for sure. But this kind of leads into another thing I noticed, at least in the City of Owen Sound budget, that increasing the number of residential units increases the tax base. Are you seeing that? And I know this is true down in Southgate because I've had that conversation with the mayor there. Are you seeing any increase in the number of residential units in Meaford? Which, I agree. It's a lagging indicator because there's a gap. But
this year,
it's built. Yeah, it's about a year.
But this year,
you seeing that in
2023? We had about $128,000 in an increase that came from assessment. And that represents, I think, approaching a half a percentage point. So yes, the thing about it is Meaford is, I think, suffering and has for a long time from a lack of industrial assessment. And I think we will fix that, and maybe I can come back to that in a moment. I want to just when we talk about TCE, okay. But in the meantime, I wanted to mention regarding the budget that this year's budget includes $14 million in capital works, and I think that's quite something. And that 14 million is made up of taxes. It's made up of the grants and subsidies that you may qualify for, and also the increase in assessment and yeah. So at the end of the day, I feel we're really moving the needle on this infrastructure gap. That's not to say that it's all roses, because we do have 2 bridges that have been out for 5 or 6 years on the town line with Chatsworth. And most recently, the County of Grey has declared that they have no commitment to these bridges. They neither, commissioned them or repaired them, they say. And so even though we think that they have a legal responsibility based on their length, basically we are, looking to overcome a pretty serious problem here. And it's an important route for some major agricultural businesses in the area. And the hardest part of all this is that the workarounds involve very steep hills, which is nothing you want to be towing big loads on a tractor with. And I can well appreciate the frustration that these farmers feel in that we haven't been able to move the needle on this. And so we're going to take a deep dive and see if there isn't a solution that has been overlooked at this point.
What other big projects are you planning to do? I mean, $14 million is a big chunk of change.
I would say, and I can't prove this, but I would say probably the largest part of that is water and sewage infrastructure. Our infrastructure is in those 2 categories is aging, and it's the most aged part is all underground, really, and it's the water that is the system that is taking up the most money at this point. But those 2 things, I think, are the major. But we do a lot of road reconstruction, and there's going to be a big project not far from where I live here on the County Road 7, which goes by the new Georgian Bay Community School. And yeah, there's a big project, the county doing a lot of work further south, and we're involved in the water mains on that stretch within Meaford, within urban.
And the thing to remember is also that these are always partnerships, from the funding right through to the execution. You mentioned the variety of grants, and I'm thinking things like community improvement program, CIP, or I think that's now that's where the gas tax went.
Yeah. Yes, and the CIP is really, really big. We have tried to, in our new official plan, provide for SIP grants to be directed into housing. There's 2 things about housing. The first thing is that it is not a first-tier responsibility, and the second thing is, bloody all is going to happen unless first tiers, take responsibility and do something about it. We have to do something. We have to kickstart. We have to scream and shout and, throw tantrums. But because the province is wanting to make it the municipality's problems. And really, it's when we talk about like attainable housing, we're talking the second tier, the county government. But at the end of the day, I think that every first-tier municipality, like the municipality of Meaford, has got to do everything it can to promote and agitate and figure it out. It isn't rocket science, but it might as well be. You know what I mean? Because every single municipality in the country, not just Ontario, has this problem.
What do you see Meaford being able to do?
Well, we have a plan right at the moment to do something, but I guess I'd have to say that it's premature for me to talk about it because it involves property that we don't possess at this point in time, but hope to have an interest in and to be able to control what happens on that land. And definitely attainable housing is our fondest desire for that. We have a lot of housing projects, in the pipeline, sort of on the conveyor belt, and as they come on, I think we're doing everything we can to try and ensure that they're as affordable as possible. Looncall, for example, which is the new development on the west side of the Highway 26 corridor through Meaford. It is going to be going ahead before long, and in order to achieve their purposes, they had to sell off some of the lots to another developer who will be charging, market rate for the houses they're building. But that enables him, I think, to proceed on the rest of the project closer to his vision of affordable housing that is not maybe exactly what you define as attainable housing, but housing that will be more affordable for more people.
It's interesting because one of the things I saw recently is a diagram which basically said we have to consider housing on a spectrum. And you've just outlined that spectrum, because at one end you've got supportive housing, such as which is the upper tier responsibility. There's this really fuzzy, attainable, affordable middle, and then you've got a higher end housing up at the other end of the spectrum. But it's a spectrum, and it sounds like what you're doing is you're targeting particular segments of the spectrum to say we'll look at this area and do some things.
I think that every municipality is going to have to do that and try and come up with ways that they can hopefully get some attainable housing, which is that in my mind is 30% of your income. Rather than 50% or 60%, and I think that is something that we can do, but it does take work and effort for sure.
Yes, and I'm just going to throw a plug in here for the Institute of South Georgian Bay, and their housing toolkit, municipal housing toolkit, because they've got some really interesting concepts that they're floating. And one of the most recent ones has to do with housing affordability. So I presume you're well aware of those.
I was recently at their 2023 think tank, and what an amazing organization. I think this whole area, the whole Southern Georgian Bay area, is very, very blessed because we have very engaged publics, people who are very aware of social needs in their communities, and they're not just aware of them, but they're going to do something about them, and they're not even elected representatives, and God bless them. They're doing good work. We're very fortunate in the municipality of Meaford. We have a little different group called Imagine Meaford, but you can tell from the title that they're thinking outside the box, and they're trying to help us get more of the housing we need. And that is the problem up to this point. And especially if you look at Collingwood and town of Blue Mountains, everybody is happy to build $1 million condos. And there are many people who are happy to buy them. But there are many local people, younger and older, who cannot afford $1 million condo. And we have not been building much for them. And it's hard. People get in a building to make money. They don't get in it to lose money. And so far, there's very few people have found a way to make money on attainable housing. But, that's the challenge. And that's what I feel all politicians at all levels need to be focused on.
Sure. Well, it sounds like you've got some good creative people working on some very exciting solutions.
I'd like to tell you a bit, if I can, David, about our council, because I am so lucky to head a council like we have. We have some veterans, and we have 2 newcomers who are just, dynamite people. And if I can mention some names, I would say that every councillor, first of all, visits every site where there's an application for a zoning change. Frankly, everywhere where a ratepayer has a problem, they go. And they know our roads, they know our infrastructure, and they talk to proponents and they talk to the neighbors. And this goes on all the time. Tony Bell, and a real veteran, and Rob Urig, a newcomer, are on the Grace Alba Conservation Authority. And they keep us up to date on the important role that it plays in growth and development, as well as climate change. And climate change, which is, as you know, a growing issue, is a particular hobby horse of Harley Greenfield, a real veteran, and Brandon Forder, a newcomer. And they also champion a lot of things like plastics and styrofoam recycling. Brandon is on the library board, and he's constantly, keeping us apprised of the amazing things going on at the library. Tony, one of his passions is farm safety, and he's on the county's farm safety committee, and is always reminding us of what a dangerous profession farming is, and how we need to, all work together to keep it safer. And Robin and Brandon, bless them, they've been calling on our businesses in their spare time to sort of take the economic pulse, if I can put it that way. And I think that's a great thing. Deputy Mayor Shirley Keaveney has developed contacts and expertise in housing, economic development, and all the services provided by the second-tier county council. And what this is doing, and what I appreciate so much, is it frees me up to focus on growth and development. And I've been trying to meet with developers and getting up to date with their projects, basically, promoting possibilities. And as I see it, Meaford is just loaded with possibilities. A bit of an untold secret. And I'll just give you one example and then let you go ahead here. Something urban Meaford has lacked for some considerable time now has been a downtown grocery. And it did upset some people to see that the former grocery store, the one that was featured in One Magic Christmas, do you remember that? That grocery store, and we all knew people who cashiered there and so on. It became our library, and what a fabulous makeover that was. But people living downtown, it's a long walk up the Sykes Street Hill and a fair distance on down to the plaza to go to our Independent, which is a wonderful supermarket. But anyway, now we have Farm Fresh right in the middle of our main block down there. And I would describe it as half grocery store, half deli. And just to give you a little idea of how great it is, I was talking to a consultant recently, and he said he'd been in there, and he said, I felt like I was in downtown Toronto. He said the ambience, the selection, it was amazing, and it is. So that's the kind. I see our downtown just being revitalized every day. You see improvements. You know what I mean? And I knew this was coming. It was very, very hard to see it stagnate during COVID. It was not fun. But honestly, I just see such an amazing difference. And I think that, we can look forward to a lot of good things. And that's my pitch.
Well, that's great to hear, Ross, because one of the big concerns about anyone who's involved in food security are what we call food deserts. where there is no place to buy food, and then you can go into small towns often have no food store, meaning you have to go somewhere else to buy your groceries, and it's been there are, and as communities grow, corners of them end up as food deserts as well, because food retailers concentrate in certain areas, and you got to have a car. If there's no transit, you got to have a car. So yeah, it sounds like this is a good thing for Meaford. And maybe we should all head to Meaford for our new taste treat.
Well, believe me, it is a shopping experience. And I find, I'll give you another, for instance, I maybe told you about this, but we have a store called the Crystal Dragon. And are you familiar with it? Our great grandkids have been in there they were here on Easter weekend, and they had to go there. And the first time they were there, which was back at Summerfest, they came out of there just moaning, why doesn't Guelph have a store like this? And that tells you we've arrived, you know what I mean? When we've got something that they don't have in larger centers, you know? And that kids really are into.
Absolutely. It's the kind of thing that sometimes you don't know. First of all, as Joni Mitchell said, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. But also, sometimes we don't appreciate what we have.
Very true.
Yeah. Well, it's great. It's good to hear that kind of thing is happening in Meaford. Now, I happen to notice that Georgian Bay Symphony has, in the years I've always been here, has tended to play at the old OSCVI, now East Ridge, but it ended up in Meaford Hall, doing something very different.
And you know, they have been at Meaford Hall, but it was a long, long time. And just coincidentally, I will share with you that this morning at 11 o'clock, I met some members of the Georgian Bay Symphony at Meaford United Church, because I wanted them to see our sanctuary and the associated facilities, but a sanctuary which, in my mind, wraps up to 500 people in architectural splendor and acoustical perfection. Honestly, and you know what, Murray Hall, you know Murray, he wasn't driving his old Ford today, but he got his violin out and started playing, and he said, "Oh my God, you know, it's so easy to fill this whole huge space, you know, with music." And they're so impressed with the low platform. He said, "We can get the whole symphony at the front of the sanctuary here." On sort of two levels, and you know, there's a balcony, and then the seats rise. He just raved about this as a performance venue, and the thing about it is, it's not the most expensive performance venue in the neighborhood either. Anyway, they were delighted to be in Meaford Hall, and I had the opportunity to say a few words. And basically, I just said, you know, we are so starved for classical music, you know, please come back and come back soon, you know. And, you know, the show, this was really an outreach show. I'm sure that people who are real serious music fans would be saying, when are they going to do something, you know, that will, you know, get my, you know, my brain, you know, ticking. But what they did do was all kinds of music from The Sound of Music, you know, and they had the most wonderful farce on a Mozart opera, where and it was actually done to the Three Little Pigs. You've probably seen this done. All I can say is nobody after that would say, "I don't like opera," because you couldn't help being taken in by such a fantastic farce. It was just wonderful. The music, the orchestra is, or not orchestra, the symphony is just amazing. And I'll tell you something that concerns me, and I'm going to just spit it right out here, and that is that they one of the great things they did was they had a little contest, and they had 3 kids sit up facing the audience, and they were able to hear different pieces of the orchestra and identify them. And we're not teaching that anymore.
Ah, very true. Very true.
Everything was a violin, even a piccolo,
Yes.
even a trombone.
Yeah.
And you know what? Poor kids, they can't help it. Nobody is informing them. Nobody is giving them a grounding in such a fundamental part of our culture as symphony.
I want to step back a minute to your comment about Meaford United Church and the acoustics. I happen to know that the design of that building is actually not acoustically perfect, but acoustically superb, because I've been in other churches of similar design. And if you've ever been to the original Grand Ole Opry in Nashville,
Yeah,
the original Grand Ole Opry has exactly the same design.
Okay, and I have been in that building.
Yep.
And I guess you're right. It is like a semicircle. I believe the same architect did Meaford United Church as did Central West Side United.
They did.
In Owen Sound. And
I'll tell you the other thing, Ross. Do you know where the best place to listen if they ever go back to Meaford United Church? Do you know where the best seat in the house is? The balcony. The balcony.
Well, yeah, we were in the balcony today, and you know the amazing thing is, like. I want to say back in the late 60s, early 70s, the interior was renovated. Like you wouldn't want to change any of the, it's got a huge dome and it's just drop dead gorgeous. But at the front, it was all brought down to one level. I think there's 2 steps. So there isn't a seat in the house that you can't see the full orchestra out there. And it's, I just think that, there's, first of all, we need to be bringing people into that building more than just on Sunday, or, it will not survive, So, and that building was 1908, same year as Meaford Hall. These are buildings that no one would undertake today. You know what I mean? You cannot get a building like this. They're priceless. And we just, Meaford is so fortunate to have these architectural gems. And so one of the things I did, for example, we have a gentleman who owns a good chunk of the main street and a developer, but he hasn't been doing much lately. And I called him into my office for a chat. I never had the opportunity to speak to him personally. And we had a great chat. And I learned his plans. One of his plans, and this I can tell you, the old Meaford Fire Hall behind with the tower behind Meaford Hall. Well, he has plans to renovate that as a restaurant, and I can't think of a more interesting locale for a restaurant. And the plans include an elevator to a patio over the new garage part. It's going to be stunning, really. And I think that's, one of the things we can look forward to. And as it is in that block of Sykes Street, I think we have 1, 2, 3, I think we've got 4 restaurants. I call it Restaurant Row. And we have 4 excellent restaurants there, including the Damn Pub, Franny's, it's Italian. Get the name out for the third ones. And then the Leaky Canoe. I apologize it's named after the lady who is the chef and owns it, but I'm going to have to, if we take a break, I'll get to refresh my memory.
Tell you what, we're going to go to break.
Short-downs, I think it is called.
Okay, well, we're going to go to break, so I was going to give you the opportunity to root that out, but we're going to go to break now, and we'll come back because, we got more to talk about. All right, friends, I'm David Shearman, and this is Politically Speaking. We'll be right back.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
This is Rogers TV.
My name is Matthew Rutledge. I'm a 60 Scoop survivor, born in Red Lake. Was adopted from there to Toronto at the age of 4. A lot of our brothers and sisters, family members got separated from each other. That was the government's goal, to break that connection from brothers and sisters. Basically taking the Indian out of the child. Right now, they're still trying to find themselves. Originally, my birth name is Harvey Halverson. In my high school days, teens, I was trying to fit into society. I knew I was First Nations, but I didn't know who I was inside. I think later in life, I started that journey. I am proud, Anishinaabe man, who I am now. I love life, who I am.
Don't forget to join us next week on Grey County Life on Rogers TV.
And we're going to be talking about how important volunteers are for National Volunteer Week.
Hi, and welcome back to Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. My guest is the mayor of the municipality of Meaford. How's that for alliteration? Ross Kentner. Ross, good to have you back.
Thank you, David. And I've got that name of the restaurant at Sheardowns.
Ah, okay, good.
And that's an example of one of the great things in Meaford. The lady that owns that restaurant now, she got started in the business by winning the Dragon's Den, and over the years, the Dragon's Den has produced so many businesses in Meaford. It's really quite an amazing and a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it's amazing how much energy and enthusiasm those kinds of events can promote. And I know that okay, there's the one on TV, but at the same time, the local ones seem to be have a pretty good track record.
They do. They honestly do, and it is tremendous. A Chamber of Commerce in a community the size of the municipality of Meaford, that they've done this all these years, and that they've produced all these businesses is just nothing short of thrilling.
Yeah, yeah. You alluded earlier to the fact that one of the shortfalls that Meaford has had is the lack of industrial capacity or industrial property, that industrial tax base, which is kind of the balance between that balances off residential tax rate. We've got a couple of big projects on the go. One that is probably a few years out, and that's the TC pumped energy storage project. And I noticed that Meaford did something really intriguing. They gave conditional approval to the project. What does that mean?
It means really two things: no change, but an important change. So the no change factor is this: that so 2 or 3 years ago, we gave them conditional approval. We said, we don't know about this. It's something we don't really have a full grasp of. So, but we do know this: we don't want our water polluted. We don't want our fish killed. No, we don't want to, cause harm. So we will wait until we get all of these environmental tests, federal, provincial. There's a great many of them. Many hoops that TCE Energy has to jump through before they can put a shovel in the ground. So we gave them conditional approval at that time. And what we've done here is reiterated conditional approval. The important thing is that the organization that oversees the electricity facilities in Ontario needed to know that there is a willingness within the community to entertain the possibility. And that stems from, if you go back some years ago, not that far, to Oakville and Mississauga, where gas plants construction began, and then it was realized there was no local support, and it cost Ontario taxpayers billions of dollars to shut it down. So we certainly don't want a repeat of that. And so what we've provided this conditional approval, which provides the opportunity for they still have to go through all of these tests. And if they fail the tests, that's the end of it. If San, the Ojibwe Nation, says no to an equity part in this puzzle, then again, I think it will be a no-go. In the meantime, if this is to happen, or should it happen, we're not ready. We don't have a list ready to go. And what I can tell you is I'm sure that if it does go ahead, we will see an influx of supply chain industries setting up shop. And you know what? They're going to be going everywhere where there's service land and nowhere where there's no service land. We're not ready. So we really needed this new phase in which we can start getting ready. And we're going to be hiring a negotiator who will deal with, like an independent negotiator who will deal with TC Energy. And I believe that they are ready to invest in Meaford. I believe they're willing to direct industries, as many as possible, into a local business park in Meaford. We have the land assembled. We do not have it fully serviced. And I will say this, I had a chat with one of our top county economic development people. And he said, Ross, it isn't just Meaford. He said, well, most of Grey County is not really, serviced, not really shovel ready. So that's a bit of a relief, but it isn't going to be any kind of relief to see whatever businesses do come into the area go everywhere but Meaford. That is why our council decided that we needed to move the needle on this enough that we can get some of the help that TC Energy is required to give to a host municipality, but not buying us, just simply supporting us in our efforts to get ready and to adjudicate this properly.
Well, I noticed in one of the presentation that TC Energy made to Owen Sound City Council was that they will be they'll have to build homes for workers, accommodations for workers. And your point about service land is absolutely on point, because if they don't have there is quite an infrastructure that will go into place just to build this thing.
I'm not sure that what would be built for itinerant workers would actually, serve the purpose of our housing needs, but that can be investigated. I just don't know at this point. It's early in the game to talk a lot about that, and I've heard all kinds of suggestions of how this might be, how it might work, but really until we get closer, we just don't know. But I just think that it was not a popular move on the part of council, and I certainly take responsibility. The deputy mayor moved it, and I supported wholeheartedly, because I sincerely believe that as long as there is a chance of this happening, we have to protect Meaford and make sure that it's in a position. And if it should all go ahead, then I think, Meaford will have many benefits as a result of it. Yeah.
Well, I think it's going to be one of those projects or subjects that will cause conversation among all of our municipal governments. I know it's on Owen Sound's agenda. It's on your agenda. It's on the county agenda. In fact, even in my most recent conversation with Alex Ruff, he made it very clear that he wants to do more digging into TC Energy, and he will be talking about that, to be sure. So it's kind of like healthcare and education. We're all concerned about it.
No, it is a very, very contentious issues. I will say that TC Energy, I'll say two things. When they didn't get off on a very good footing. When they came to town and had some public meetings, they were not really very practiced at public participation, and they mishandled that, and suffered for that. What I will say is that they have definitely heard what we don't want, and they have, as near as I can see, pretty well doubled the enormous cost of this project in order to make it much more environmentally friendly. It's difficult for a layperson to have any comment on, how environmentally upsetting or environmentally friendly it may be. But as I say, the price tag pretty much doubled in order to make sure that no harm would be done. And I think that that's a consideration. But more than anything is what I don't want to see is it happen and all the benefits go to our neighbors. And I'm more than happy to share with our neighbors, but they shouldn't, we shouldn't be left empty-handed at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you make a very, very good point, Ross. It's got to be a shared wealth. So if I can use that term. So we'll see.
And here's the thing. There are many, many things that Meaford needs and will never be able to afford. But if this did come to fruition, some of those things actually might be attainable. And I'm sure that they would be. And as it is, Meaford has so much to offer newcomers, and Meaford is going to grow dramatically. Whether this happens or not, the growth is happening. We see it, and our only job is really to just make sure that it's good growth, as good as we can make it, and that we do everything we can to protect our heritage and our environment.
Well, indeed. And if we need to know the signs of growth, I was just reviewing my most recent interview with Lori Wilder, who is the director of education for the Blue Water District School Board, and they were astonished when there were 100 new students at the school in Meaford that they didn't expect, and that's the kind of surprise growth that is happening. Brian Milne, the warden of Grey County, was telling, and the mayor of Southgate was saying that they are on track to be building 250 new homes a year in the Dundalk area. That's a lot of homes. Yes. And this is the kind of growth that we are experiencing. Are we ready for it? That's the big question, and that's the kind of thing that is on your desk and the council's desk. Well,
and that growth is pretty evident in a subject I'm sure you're going to turn to next, and that's STRs.
You're reading my mind. You're reading my mind, because STRs are short-term rentals, and the ways for municipalities to handle them is another perennial issue on municipal agendas these days. So where's Meaford in all of this now?
Well, it's a very hot topic at the moment. People are fed up with the disruption and feeling powerless to get their lives back. They want a bylaw, and they want it for May 24. and unfortunately, that's just not doable. What I will tell you is the town of the Blue Mountains has had a bylaw in place for 15 years now, and they spent the last 4 years bringing it up to speed so that it embraces everything, including bed and breakfast and all the different types of short-term rental. And 2 of those 4 years were spent in public consultations. Now, we really don't want to do anything without public consultation. So I think that people have to be realistic. What I do think will help us deliver a bylaw on a more expeditious, manner is I think Grey County is willing to help its member municipalities achieve this by providing templates of best practices. There are many, like Eastern Ontario, the Kawarthas, Muskoka, across Lake Erie, and all these areas have had this phenomenon, and they've all have different levels of success. So I think we want to, pick and choose the best. And I think Meaford, Owen Sound, Georgian Bluffs, we're all in the same boat. We need a bylaw now. And it makes a lot of sense to me to model a bylaw on the town of Blue Mountains after they've just had all of this public input. And the main thing is that you would have a common approach to the problem across southern Georgian Bay, which I think is better for us, better for visitors, and better for owners. So there's only one thing that doesn't actually make sense to me, and that is I don't think we want the county to deal with the enforcement piece. I think that's something that has to be handled by each individual municipality because you just need a local approach. Otherwise it wouldn't be effective.
Interesting. You would say that there are master bylaws available to you.
Yes.
I was talking to Sue Carlton recently on Politically Speaking, and what Georgian Bluffs has decided to do is to take a year to gather information because they feel that they're working in the dark. They know people will complain, but when it comes to bylaw, the complaints sometimes disappear. So what they've, I believe, which if I understand her correctly, they're going to take this year and gather the data, and they want people to file complaints. If there's problems, get them in there, and they'll be having go through the municipal website, and bylaw will be tracking all this and taking care of the serious stuff. So it should be interesting to see what they come up with. 6, 8, 10 months.
She's had a lot more experience than I have in municipal politics, so I would not contradict her for a moment. But at the Roma conference in January, we certainly had a number of sessions on short-term rentals, and the indication is that there are some excellent templates out there. There still would need to be time to analyze, how applicable is this particular document in our municipality versus that one, and what experience did they have, in Kingston compared to what they had in London. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I agree.
But I do think we've got this opportunity. And in other words, I don't think that we have to drag our feet for a moment. We know it's a problem, and we know that people deserve. People should, a person's home is their castle, and it is very distressing when you have a party house as your next door neighbor.
Oh, that is absolutely true. So it'll be interesting to see. I predict it's going to be an interesting summer.
Yeah, I think it is our council's top priority, and what in our part, what we said we wanted to do, we feel that we have the pillars already established, and they will be in good stead for the next 10 years. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We know what we want to do, but now rather than fluff, we want to actually have some rock solid projects. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, and we're going to make something else and get on those. And this is the top priority. So I'm hoping we would have a bylaw in place. It can't be May 24. It probably, will come a little late for this season, but I would hope before the season is over that we would have something in place. These things not only take time to, write, but they take time actually to prove themselves how effective they will be.
Will there be additional staff for bylaw enforcement required for Meaford, or will existing staff handle it?
You have the toughest problems. I'm quite of the opinion that we have enough staff now in our bylaw department for what we're doing. But I would be the first to say that if we do have an STR bylaw, that we would need more. Part of the problem in my mind is that they do not. The first problem is that they only respond to complaints. They are not proactive, like they do not take any action unless there is complaint. And that's a problem in my mind. And the second thing is that they are they don't go to any call single-handed. Two of them go together and they take a vehicle. So we already have a tremendous, stock of hardly used vehicles. We have a lot of new ones, and to me, I'm that's a bit of a tough one for me to comment on. I just yes, bylaw enforcement is important. I think if it was going to be really valuable, it would also be proactive to some degree and not reactive.
Well, let's just take that to the next step. Over the summer, if people who are watching this have a concern about STRs in their own neighborhood, doesn't matter where it is, they should be speaking to their local municipal bylaw enforcement people. That even without an STR.
Yes, absolutely.
Because if I recall, Sue Carlton, they're acting kind of in a vacuum, so they're trying to collect data. And that's why they want people to call or file complaints.
I think we've had enough complaints. I think we know what the problem is. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Or the problems. There are many. There's multiple problems.
Sure. Well, every municipality has its own issues and is always different. So we shall see what happens. I suspect that'll be another conversation the next time we talk, Ross.
Hopefully we'll be a little further along and have more to report and something of value, I hope.
Sure. Well, let's move along to a couple of kind of good news stories. First of all, Meaford has a community well-being bursary program. And this is supporting community activities, and the application process is open right now.
Yes, and what people do is they make an appointment and they come to council with a pitch. They tell us what they are doing, and there's another component too, and that is that we have them come back at the end of each year to give us a report on how they spent their money and what successes they've had and what problems they're having.
Mm-hmm. Can you give some examples of what that program might be?
Boy, it's very, very widespread. Like it covers a lot. There's a lot of groups and organizations. Like back in the winter and the fall, there was hardly a council meeting that didn't have a presentation from one of these groups. And the good news about that is that that educates councillors as to what our groups are. Meaford actually seems to have a lot of groups and organizations that sort of fly under the radar. You're not that aware of them, you know what I mean? But they're there. It's not like the Rotary Club, for example, has a tremendous profile, you know what I mean? And God love them. They deserve it. They earn it. You know what I mean? They work so hard and do so much. And so they're very much in evidence when you just about any major event, they're there. They're either, serving up the fish fry, or they're serving up the pancake breakfast, or helping you at the bar at a big function. That's the way they perform and so well. Many of these other groups are very quiet, behind the scenes, doing so much good. Something that is coming up in the next very short while is our volunteer appreciation event. And that is going to be, let me just check my calendar because it's not far away here. It is on next Tuesday, the 18th, and it's at Meaford Hall. And a highlight is going to be the presentation to the community builder. And this is a new award for a community builder, somebody who, is often, as I say, working quietly behind the scenes, but accomplishing much. So I'm looking forward to, the opportunity and the honor of presenting that award on next Tuesday.
Great. You've also got a 50+ Lifestyle and Leisure Connections Fair happening.
Yes. And unfortunately, I have to be out of town that day. So I know that Shirley, our deputy mayor, will be there. But I think this is something that's been in the works for quite a while, and just unfortunately, COVID got in the way. And as COVID, I think we became aware of it in 2019, and it was 2022 pretty much before life started to get halfway back to normal. So I do hope that this is going to be a huge success, and I regret missing it, but I know that surely we'll be there.
And where will that be held?
Not gonna fib. I'm not sure. I'm guessing at the Meaford Community Center, Meaford St. Vincent Community Center, which is our arena. But that's another thing. Meaford has so many venues, really, and when it comes to events in the town, we have often our CAO will say to me, Ross, we've got it all put together now. Now, where would you like to have it? We're very, very fortunate. And that's a product of the fact that we are the amalgamation of urban Meaford and the former townships of St. Vincent and Sydenham. So we've got lots of great places. And when I talk about how wonderful Meaford United Church is there's, I could name off 6 or 8 other church venues in urban Meaford, which are lovely, and let us not overlook places like Annan United and Leith Church. I had a picture taken in Leith Church back in the fall. I'm looking out the window, and the window is, I want to say, maybe 12 by 18, just a humongous pane glass window, and looking at a beautiful tree in full color, Some of the buildings we have are just amazing.
They are, and notable people buried, especially at Leith. You can't forget that.
Did you know that Coffin Ridge is actually going to produce a beer which is going to be have the Thompson name in it?
Oh, good.
Yes.
Good. So there's
things.
There's lots of things happening in Meaford.
There are.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's great. Well, Ross, as always, it's always a pleasure to hear what's happening in Meaford and all the things that you bring to the table and the events from council. I'm really looking forward to our next encounter, which will probably be in a few weeks, and that way we can just update people, because it's never dull here in Grey County. It's never dull at all. No.
Anyway,
So,
thank you very, very much for having me.
Okay. And friends, thank you for joining me for Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. We'll talk again.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Looking for the best way to get the Major League Baseball games you want to watch? Rogers Super Sports Pack has you covered. With MLB Extra Innings, you'll have a premium ticket to out-of-market regular season